Russia affirms its opposition to adopt any international resolution on the situation of chemical weapons in Syria under the UN Chapter 7. The Iranian and British foreign ministers stressed the need of reaching a political solution in Syria. Jabhat al-Nusra-linked terrorists are eliminated and their hideout is destroyed in Deir ez-Zor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov has criticized as illogical the American attempts aimed at pushing the UN Security Council to issue a resolution threatening Syria. Addressing the Russian Duma Council's members, Ryabkov affirmed that the international resolution cannot stipulate the use of force under the UN Chapter 7. He pointed out that the Syrian side has proved in its step to join the Chemical Weapons Prohibition Treaty its good intentions. Ryabkov said that the UN experts team will head to Syria tomorrow, expressing Russia's satisfaction over this measure as its earnest calls for the return of the UN inspectors have thus been heard.
But also on August 22nd, 23rd.
On his part, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gatilov has reiterated his country's stand that there is no alternative to a political settlement to the crisis in Syria. The Russian Foreign Ministry said Gatilov has affirmed during the meetings he held on the sideline of the UN General Assembly's sessions that a political solution in Syria represents the first precondition for stability in the region. During his meeting with UN Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs Jeffrey Feltman, the two sides discussed the situation in Syria in addition to the possible formulas for UN participation in the process of putting the chemical weapons in Syria under international supervision. Gatilov and Feltman said the agreement reached by the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his American counterpart John Kerry in Geneva offers a real chance for a diplomatic settlement for the crisis in Syria. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Jawad Zarif and his British counterpart William Hague have affirmed the need to reach a political solution to the crisis in Syria and to hold the Geneva II conference. The Iranian news agency said the talks between the two ministers during their meeting in New York yesterday on the sideline of the UN General Assembly session focused on the Iranian nuclear program, the developments in Syria and the Geneva II conference. Iranian Assistant Foreign Minister for Arab and African Affairs Hussein Amir Abdullahian has criticized the states and sides that encourage a military action against Syria. He said the ongoing support rendered by certain sides for Takfiri groups and terrorist acts inside Syria poses a real danger that threatens the region and the world as a whole. Abdullahian praised Russia's positive stance towards the crisis in Syria, which calls for adopting political and democratic solutions in dealing with the crisis. He condemned the attack by terrorist and extremist groups that targeted the Russian embassy premises in Damascus recently. In doing this, the terrorists have made it clear to all the reality of the events on the Syrian arena, Abdullahian added. A booby-trapped car exploded at the end of Nisreen Street in At-Tadamon in Damascus, leading to casualties and many injuries. Our army units have eliminated a number of terrorists, some of whom belonged to the so-called Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, during operations that targeted their hideouts and gatherings in Deir ez-Zor and its suburbs. A terrorist hideout was destroyed in Judaydat Aghedat. 9 terrorists were killed, including the so-called Abu Dajjana, leader of the group. Another army unit killed and wounded a terrorist group in Al-Muwaddafin neighborhood in the city. Meanwhile, a number of terrorists were killed when an explosive device blew up as they were trying to plant it in Al-Arfi neighborhood in Deir ez-Zor. Our army units have killed and wounded several terrorists in Aleppo and its suburbs and foiled the attempts by terrorists to attack inhabitants in Salah ad-Din neighborhood and Al-Malikiya village. A military source said the army units also destroyed terrorist gatherings in the surroundings of Aleppo Central Prison, Al-Kindi Hospital, Al-Mansoura and Al-Bianoun villages, and Al-Faisal grinding mill north Dar Jamal in Aleppo suburbs. Terrorist weapons and ammunition were also destroyed on their Hafer Hamim Road, Al-Nayrab Camp, Al-Jabbul Lake, Khan Al-Asal, Al-Wadihi and Sheikh Saeed. A large number of terrorists were eliminated. The Syrian Arab Army and Security Forces units continue fighting terrorism and maintaining security and stability in Barza neighborhood. The Syrian Arab Army units, in cooperation with the Special Task Unit of the Internal Security Forces, eliminated dozens of terrorists and destroyed their hideouts in Barza neighborhood in Damascus. During the military operations, tunnels were discovered in different parts of Barza neighborhood containing large quantities of explosive devices. Terrorists were using the tunnels to move and to store weapons and ammunition. People in the town of Nawa and in Al-Mleha al-Sharqiyya in Dar'a pledged during the meeting with the governor and the secretary of Al-Ba'ath party branch to kick off the armed men from their villages as joint committees were formed during the meeting to provide the needs of the people as soon as possible. Governor of Dar'a, Mr. Muhammad Khalid Hannoush, along with Mr. Shukri Rifai, secretary of the Ba'ath party branch in Dar'a, met a delegation from the people of Nawa town and from the village of Al-Mleha al-Sharqiyya with the aim of being informed about the services and rehabilitation of what has been vandalized by the armed groups. The governor of Dar'a was briefed about the damage of the infrastructure, which has had a negative impact on the services. In turn, Rifai stressed the importance of these meetings, which embody the spirit of cooperation and communication, stressing that Syria is steadfast in that targeted all aspects of life. During the meeting, the people of Nawa formed committees to normalize life in the city and to provide all services in order to secure the return of the displaced to their homes. In Al-Qusayr, in Homs countryside, where the Syrian Arab Army has restored security and stability, students started returning to their schools after all the requirements of the educational process had been made available by the government. Dozens of students in Al-Qusayr of Homs countryside returned to their schools after the army restored security and stability to the town. Several efforts of the government institutions were combined to ensure the success of the educational process and the start of a new school term by the rehabilitation of some schools and by providing all the requirements. Welcome back. In Iraq, 8 people, including 7 policemen, were killed in 2 terrorist attacks that targeted 2 police stations west of the country. Iraqi police said that armed men attacked with machine guns and mortar shells 2 police stations in Rawa and Ana in Al-Anbar, west of the country, killing 7 policemen and a civilian. Kenyan Foreign Minister Amina Mohammed said that 2 Americans and a British woman were among the gunmen who attacked the Westgate Mall in Nairobi, killing at least 69 people. Today morning, the exchange of fire was renewed in the mall after authorities announced yesterday that it had maintained control over it. Meanwhile, Kenyan security sources said that special forces were still fighting 1 or 2 militants holed up inside the mall. The Kenyan Interior Ministry had earlier announced that it had freed all the hostages, while the Somali Youth Movement, which assumed responsibility for the attack, said that its armed men were still holding a number of hostages. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam, but after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The marketing manager at the Ministry of Agriculture has asserted that the ministry's plan includes looking for new mechanisms to inspect agricultural products, which was adopted by the Standards and Metrology Commission, and to develop the necessary legislation to ensure that our agricultural products meet the international standards. The Ministry of Economy said that the decision of preventing vegetables export helps reduce the prices, as prices are expected to climb 50% if vegetables are exported. The Ministry also added that this decision came to cover the local market with sufficient quantities of vegetables in the interest of citizens. A global exchange company has been established in Syria with a capital of $20 million US. Special sources which reported this added that a financial facility with a capital of 1 billion Syrian pounds for trading at the Damascus Securities Exchange has been established too. The Center of Industrial Research has announced that it is continuing to provide the companies and the industrial establishments of the private and public sectors with basic services in order to develop the industrial products and keep their competitiveness, both locally and internationally. On the other hand, the director of the center said that the center has a good laboratory base for multi-purposes to cover the industrial needs. Oil prices of the U.S. crude oil traded near the lowest price in more than 6 weeks. The futures slightly changed after closing yesterday at the lowest level since August. Brent for November settlement slid 5 cents to reach $108 US a barrel. U.S. stocks fell, with the Standard & Poor's 500 index having the longest retreat in a month, as financial shares slumped and investors watched speeches from the Federal Reserve officials for clues on monetary policies. European stocks erased their advance, while Japanese shares fell, with the Topix index retreating from a 2-month high. Gold snapped a 2-day decline on speculations that the demand may strengthen before China's Golden Week holiday, as lower prices have lured buyers. Gold for immediate deliveries rose 0.5% to reach $1,329 an ounce. The US dollar snapped a 2-day advance against the euro as the US government moves closer to a shutdown, with lawmakers wrangling over the debt limit and markets gauging the path for monetary policy. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Have a nice day.